Imagine moving into your dream home. Quiet street, friendly neighbors, a backyard that backs up into a forest. Everything feels perfect until one night you hear it. Vintage music blasting from the woods. Then silence until the second night when the music comes back. And this time they're watching. This isn't a haunted house story. This is something far stranger. Moving into your dream home should feel like the beginning of something beautiful. For Cheryl and me, it was supposed to be the start of our next chapter. A house, a dog, maybe a couple of kids running around the yard. We had just signed the papers on a spacious property in a small inland town in Georgia, nestled quietly at the edge of a patch of woods. A little slice of peace, but we were wrong, and I still don't know who or what wanted us gone. We'd only just settled in. Cheryl and I had been together for 10 years, married for 2. The house was everything we wanted. Quiet street, friendly neighbors, and enough open space out back to one day raise a family. We were still living out of boxes, learning where the light switches were, figuring out the creaks in the floorboards. The first 2 nights were uneventful, unpacking, ordering pizza, falling asleep on the couch from exhaustion. But on the 3rd night, something happened. We had just turned off the lights, maybe 20 minutes earlier. The house was quiet, still. Then we heard it, music, not from a neighbor's backyard, and definitely not from a passing car. This wasn't bass-thumping party music. It was something older, staticky, like it was playing from an old gramophone. Cheryl and I locked eyes, both sitting up, listening. It was coming from the backyard. I opened the window beside our bed, and the music got louder, clearer. I didn't recognize the tune at first, but it had this cheerful, bouncy rhythm that felt completely wrong for the time and place. Later, I'd learn it was Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf by Henry Hall, a cheerful tune with a sinister edge when played under the cover of night. And make no mistake, it was horrifying. There was no way it was coming from a neighbor. We were spaced out enough that music like that couldn't have drifted over. I grabbed a hoodie, went downstairs, and flipped on the backyard lights. Nothing. The music was louder now, but not coming from the yard itself. It was deeper, out in the woods. Still, I stepped outside, heart pounding. The song played all the way through, and then silence. I stood there for a moment, staring into the dark tree line. Nothing moved. I told myself it had to be a prank. Maybe some local kids welcoming the new couple in town with a weird joke. But even saying it out loud to Cheryl later that night, it sounded like nonsense. Why would anyone do that? The next night, it happened again. Just as we turned off the lights, music, louder this time. Not the same song either. It was Tiptoe Through the Tulips, and if you've ever heard that song in the wrong context, you know how deeply unsettling it can be. We were both frozen for a moment. Cheryl looked at me with this mix of dread and disbelief. I got up, went to the window, and this time I saw something. Something small on the grass, not a person, but an object. I told Cheryl I was going to check it out. She told me to call the cops, and I said I would, after I saw what it was. I guess part of me was angry, like I had to assert myself, prove I wasn't afraid, that I was still in control. So I stepped out into the yard again. The music was even louder now. As I approached the object, I realized what it was. An old, battered radio. The kind with knobs and dials and chipped paint. It looked like something out of the 50s, and it was blaring Tiptoe Through the Tulips. I bent down and turned it off. The silence that followed felt heavy. I turned and looked back toward the house. Cheryl was at the window, watching. I held up the radio and shouted something like, "Someone left this out here to scare us." And that's when she started screaming. She was screaming my name over and over, telling me to run. Her voice cracked in panic. I shouted back, "Why?" But she just kept yelling the same word. "There's people behind you." My stomach dropped. I turned slowly, and there they were. 3 figures standing just outside the tree line, spaced out evenly, still, silent, watching me. They weren't running at me. They weren't moving at all. But somehow that was worse. I didn't wait. I bolted. I sprinted back to the house, slammed the door behind me and locked it. Cheryl was already in tears upstairs, panicking. I told her I was calling the cops, and I did. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. 2 officers arrived not long after. We explained everything, every weird sound, every song, every movement. I gave them the radio, said I only touched the top handle. They took it with them, maybe to check for fingerprints or evidence. They swept the edge of the woods with flashlights for a few minutes. I think it was more to make us feel better than to actually find someone. If those people were still out there, they were long gone by the time the police showed up. And when the officers left, it was just us again. 2 people in a house that suddenly felt a lot less like home. We didn't sleep that night, or the next. I installed motion lights, cameras, reinforced the locks. Every creak in the night made us jump. Every flicker of a shadow outside the window brought that night back. Weeks have passed since then, and they haven't come back. No music, no radios, no figures. But every time I close the blinds or step outside after dark, I wonder, what if they're still out there, just waiting? I don't know what they wanted. I don't know why they chose us, but I do know this. If you ever hear vintage music echoing from the woods at night, don't go looking for the source, because sometimes the unknown doesn't want to be found. It wants to be feared, and fear feeds it. I've replayed that week in my mind 1,000 times. The songs, the figures, the silence afterward. It doesn't feel like it ended. It feels like it paused, like a chapter closed, but the book is still open. And with every creak in the floorboards, every unexplained flicker of light, every strange dream Cheryl wakes up from gasping, I know we're not as alone as we'd like to think. We've installed motion lights, cameras, alarms, everything. But even technology has its limits. When you're dealing with something that doesn't belong in this world, we moved here to build a life. Now, we just try to make it through each night. So if you find yourself standing in your backyard, staring into a stretch of trees, while some scratchy old tune drifts through the air, don't assume it's just kids. Don't assume it's harmless. Because when the forest starts singing, it's not calling you in, it's warning you. And if you ignore that warning, then maybe you're the next story someone else tells, wondering why no one listened.